Welcome to the class of project management. Let's try to understand the concept of project and project management in this class. A project can be defined as a group of unique interrelated activities that are planned and executed in a certain sequence to create a unique product or service within a specific time frame, budget, and the client's specification. So, the Project Management Institute has defined project as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product or service. That means it is an temporary effort which is to be made to create something, to give a unique product or service. It is not permanent in nature, it is temporary. It is only one time. It is not repetitive in nature. So, business standard defines a project as a unique set of coordinated activities with definite starting and finishing points. That starting point and the end point, there is a time frame limit undertaken by an individual or organization to meet specific objectives within defined schedule. So that schedule is also defined, and whatever the aim after which we have taken up the project, once that objective is achieved, our project ends there and then. Now, some more definition. It can also be defined as any undertaking that has definite final objectives representing specified values to be used in the satisfaction of some need or desire. So, ultimately objectives and goals, they fulfill the need and desire. A commercial project involves these key considerations: what should be the cost, how much will be the time required, what are the capabilities that it provides to the organizations, and whether it will fit into the strategies of the organizations. Obviously, any project which you are taking at a lower level or middle level, it has to comply with the overall objectives of the organization. Some projects examples can be taken as: if you are redesigning or relocating a production facility, it can be a kind of manufacturing project. Implementing a management information system, that can be your MIS project. Developing a new alloy required for a space vehicle, it is a kind of spacecraft project. In constructing national highways, organizing the Olympics, these are the different kinds of projects. We deal with the projects in every aspects, in all walks of lives. See, whether a student is there, the student is taking a course, some professional course, that's a kind of project for him or her. If a manufacturer is manufacturing some product in the factory, once that product is manufactured, that project is ended. So that is also another kind of project. And some people take project to these contractors constructing the roads or dams, bridges. These are also kinds of projects. So we deal with projects in our day-to-day lives also. So that depends what kind of project. But what happens, everybody has been doing projects, but the only thing is that we are not realizing it, that we had taken up a project and we finished also. We are not treating it as a project. Now, some of the parameters which help us, these are also known as constraints, but these are the parameters which help us in deciding the project. First is scope, second is quality, cost, time and resources. Scope and quality of a project are generally decided by the last three parameters: cost, time and resources. These three parameters will help us in deciding the scope and the quality of the project. What is the relationship between these projects? Let's see. The good resource availability is there. Cost is also, if not a very big constraint, it should be that much cost and fund should be available to you so that a quality product can be given. And the time, that objective or the goal which is to be achieved, it should be feasible, it should be possible within that time frame to finish that project. So this is the scope triangle, this is the triangle which defines the scope of a project. Now coming to the types of projects, project typology, and there are two very important terms which are used in kinds of projects in terms of projects. First is uncertainty and second is complexity. First step in classification of project is to recognize the class of project involved so as to determine the type of organization system and leadership style to set up, what kind of complex project it is. If it is of standard nature, then normally running leadership or running organization system it can fit into. But if it is something different and very complex in nature, then you need a line and staff organization where a specialization is given to that. Functional leadership will be more appropriate for that kind of project. Next is how much project management to apply. That depends. If a high level of risk is involved, then you might need altogether a different project management department, and if you think it is not very risky, it is a general kind of project, so it can go as a parallel activity in your organization. Now, coming on to the project management. Managing a project is called project management. Project management is taken as a coordinating discipline. It is a complementary discipline to the main management. So, project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools and techniques to project activities in order to meet or exceed stakeholder needs and expectations. So, whatever the knowledge, skills, tools we have to perform the project activities, which has the ultimate goal of meeting the needs and expectations of the stakeholders. So, it includes defining project goals, then specifying how the goals will be accomplished, and the third, the resources which we will be needing, and the budgets and the time for completion of that particular project. Now, what are the objectives of project management? Coordinate the various interrelated processes of the project. It is a sequence of activities which are involved in any project. So, those processes, those activities need to be coordinated, that is done under the project management. Ensure that project includes all the work required and only the work required. What do we mean by that? It has to be detailed, but at the same time brevity has to be there. Now, these are two contradictory things, the detailed and brief. It means that if unnecessary activities, unnecessary work will be part of your project, it will delay the project, it will stretch the cost limit and it will also stretch the time limit of the project. So, all the important work and activities have to be part of the project, those should not be missed out, but at the same time it is to be taken care of that unnecessary task and work and activities, futile kind of activities should not form a part of your project. Ensure that project is completed on time and within budget. Ensure that project will satisfy the needs for which it was undertaken. Ultimately, the goal has to be achieved, so that satisfaction level, the need has to be satisfied. Ensure the most effective use of people involved with the project. You have to make best use of your people who are involved in the project. Promote effective communication between the project team members and key stakeholders. That communication gap should not be there. Whatever the stakeholders want from you out of this project, you should be able to communicate it to your team as a project manager. Ensure that project risks are identified, analyzed and responded. That means whatever the risks are involved, you should be in a position to identify them appropriately and analyze them and able to mitigate those risks. Now, why project management? Why there is a need of project management as a separate discipline? Why we are saying that it should be introduced as a separate discipline? So, this decision is taken up on the following factors. First, sharing of common resources. Sharing of common resources, as in all the organizations, resources are always scarce and they are common. That means, if some key professionals are available, then everybody would like them to be a part of their departments, be it marketing department or finance department, HR department, but they cannot be present everywhere. So, what you can do that to get the best of the skilled people or the best of the resources, if a separate project management department is there, it becomes little smoother. Next, the importance of the project to the organization. If the project which the organization has taken up, it is of standardized nature, then there is no need of going for an additional project management department. But if that project you stake it, your organization's reputation or your organization's future is on stake because of that project. Suppose a small private firm got a government contract. So, it is the first government contract for that organization. If they are able to fulfill, if they are able to give the best with less cost and less time consumed to the government, then they might be the in future also government can rely on them as for that line as a contractor. But in case it was their first project and they fail in that, or they exceed the time limit or the cost limit, then they would never get a chance, they would be disqualified out of the government list. So, for that reason also it is required that importance will decide whether you need to go for a additional project management department or not. Next, size of the project. If it is common, it is small in nature, which can be parallelly arranged or managed, then there is no need. But if it is of enormous in size, then obviously additional department is required. Degree of unfamiliarity with the work involved and its complexity. Degree of unfamiliarity means the people who are the employees, present employees of the organization, if they are not familiar, the lower level is not familiar with the kind of work which we will be doing in that particular project, then of course, you need to have an additional project management department, where you will be hiring the people who are familiar with that kind of, those kind of tasks and those kind of activities. Otherwise, your normal employees are not able will be able to give any kind of input to that particular project. Changes in the market. Technologies are every day it is changing. So, all technologies are becoming obsolete, and so these things are coming out. So, to stay in the market, to adopt the new technologies, how to cope up with the dynamic changes in the organization, you can go for a separate project management department. The reputation of the organization. The same thing we talked about, if it that project is of utmost importance to the organization, the reputation it will add to the goodwill of the organization, it will add to the reputation of the organization, then an additional project management department is always advisable. Now, coming to the project life cycle. Project life cycle means the phases through which a project goes on. It refers to a logical sequence of activities to accomplish the project's goals or objectives. Actually, it goes through 4 phases. First is conception and selection, next planning and scheduling, phase 3 is implementation, monitoring, control, phase 4 evaluation, termination. Actually, project life cycle, these phases, it varies from project to project, right. So, suppose if we take example of human development life cycle, the conception takes place, after that birth takes place, then there is a childhood, then there is adulthood, then there is old age, and then there is death. So, that is also a kind of cycle, project life cycle. But if you look at the IT life cycle, they do the designing, they do the installation, they do the testing, and finally, they hand it over to the client. So, every project has different stages, it is all customized. Every project life cycle is customized, there is no standard life cycle, but we would try to cover the general steps which almost all the projects go through. So, coming to the phase 1, conception and selection, it involves identifying a need for a project, why that project is needed, establishing goals to be achieved by the project, establishing the amount that the firm will have to commit for the project, presenting the project idea or various alternative ideas to the management and get their approval. It is the conception stage where you conceive the idea, where you generate the idea, and then what all ideas you have in your mind, you need to take a approval from the management. Whichever the government finds more idea is more unique and feasible, that would be approved. Next, planning and scheduling. Set up a technical team to decide on how the project can be implemented. In this stage, we ask for a technical assistance, that how whatever we want to do, how things are to be set up. Plan for the requirement of personnel, finance and material etc., what all things will be required, and then prepare a schedule. Next, phase 3, procuring materials, building and testing the tools, developing support systems, producing the system that is aimed at, verifying whether the performance is up to the laid down standards, making modifications if required. So, in phase 3, implementation is actually putting things into action. So, this is stage 3 where actually work starts happening. We start implementing, we start acting on the things which we had planned. So, that support system has been developed. Also, we at the same time we keep on checking that whether whatever we had standards we had made, we are performing according to our standards or not, whether we are going in the same direction or not. Last phase is evaluation and termination, training operational staff, the one who are operating, they need to be trained time to time, transfer of materials, transferring the responsibilities, releasing surplus resources that remain after use. Once your project has been terminated, it has been closed down. So, whatever the surplus resources are left within your department, those should be sent back. Releasing the project staff for the next assignment, so that the next project can be taken up, the staff should be released off. So, it is, although it is called as a project life cycle, but there is no cycle as such, because there is no repetition of the stages. It is more of a sequential of activities. It starts and it ends, but it does not come back to the first stage again. Now, managing the project scope, this includes two different scopes. First is product scope and the another one is project scope. Product scope, which is what the end result of the project will create. See, we take up any project, every project's final aim is to give the outcome. What would be the outcome of that project? What would be the deliverable of that project? The product scope is what customers focus on, what they envisioning the firm to create, and the product scope describes the thing or service that will exist as a result of undertaking the project. The project scope on the other hand describes all the work to create the product scope. It includes all the work and only the required work to complete the project deliverable. So, your product scope is the final outcome, the deliverable with which you want to satisfy the need of the customer or the client. But the project scope is all the activities, all the related actions, all the related tasks which will be performed to fulfill that, to give that product. Project manager and client prepares project scope and deliverables. Obviously, they sit together, they discuss what client actually wants, and then project manager gives the details that these are the things, this is how we will be going for this. The project manager then prepares a project overview statement based on the list of deliverables. The project overview statement will be sent to the firm's top management for approval. Obviously, whatever the project manager has discussed and whatever the project manager has charted out, that is to be sent to the senior management, so that they can approve it and it can get into the pipeline. The project manager prepares a project definition statement with his team members that can be used as a reference in executing the project. So, this definition statement is nothing but it is a kind of guidelines available when you start executing the project. Now, coming to the growth of project management or evolution of project management, if we talk about phase 1, that is before 1950s, project management was only informal. There was no formal project management existed that time. It was the same handling of projects was done by the line managers. Formal lines of communications were not necessary, and sophisticated organization structure was also not existing that time. After in late 60s, it started spreading. Project management gained some widespread in 60s, almost 1970. Formal project management departments came into force. Clear-cut distinction between the role of project manager, line managers were established. That project manager will be working on that project, and line manager will be doing the general departmental activities and responsibilities. Late 70s, project management started spreading further and further, and following benefits started to accrue from this. First, unhindered flow of work horizontally and vertically. See, if in the regular routine activities project management is introduced, it somehow it will hinder, it will act as a barrier to your smooth flow of activities. So, there what happened, if you have a separate project management department, it will not be disturbing the other ongoing activities in the organization. Improvement in the orientation towards customer problems, easier demarcation of responsibilities. Responsibilities were very categorically, clearly defined. Better adaptation to a dynamic environment, ability to handle a multidisciplinary activity within specified constraints, and improvement in organizational design. So, these were the benefits which it started giving to the organization. Now, let us talk about the Project Management Institute. What happened in 1969, the Project Management Institute was established to improve, to meet the industrial requirements, to improve the skills and standards, and to make project management managers more professionals. It is non-profitable professional organization dedicated to promoting project management. It has more than 1,50,000 members over 150 countries. What is the role? Although we already discussed, to set industry standards. Standards are set by the PMI, conducts research and provides education. It also provides certificate programs. It conducts seminars and international workshops to discuss present context and improve the standards of project management. Now, coming to the project management in India. Project management in India has been a failure till now, you can say. But only recently now some projects have been successful. Otherwise, if you go beyond before 2015 or 2010, it was considered as a failure, and the reasons were severe time and cost overruns. You must have noticed, also observed also in your life, and we always used to get to hear it from our elders that so and so project, government passed so and so project, it is to be completed by 2020, this highway will be completed by 2020, and somehow we already had a notion in our minds 2020, no, even if it gets completed by 2025, we would be more than happy, because since beginning we have been seeing if some project is to be finished by that deadline, but it has never been happening. Even if it gets finished within a margin of 3-4 years, then also Indians are quite satisfied and they are quite happy, okay, project is completed on time. There have been many projects which crossed the line of time so badly that it was to be completed within, for an example, if it was to be completed by 2010, it was completed in 2050. So, that kind of projects have also been there in India. So, these two reasons, severe time and cost overruns, have been the major reasons for failure of projects, and mostly projects were run by public sector, and these were the reasons for that. Private sector, if taking up a project, more or less that efficiency is more, it is implemented more effectively, and they try to terminate the project, finish off the project within the time frame. And what are the reasons for these overruns. These reasons have been categorized into two heads, first internal reasons and another are external reasons. Internal reasons can be disputes with local people on acquisition of land and compensation, bad choice of technology, non-availability of skilled personnel, lack of proper planning, non-availability of the equipment of required quality at the required time, poor quality of the inputs purchased, labor disputes, lack of proper handling of organizational issues such as appointment of the project manager, because this has been it plays very crucial role in case of Indian context, because they don't hire project manager according to the capabilities. That project manager is hired on the basis of the jack or the approach he is, how politically influential that person was. Absence of proper coordination between different departments involved, such as customs, sales tax, lots of approvals are to be taken. It is said that in India, although after government has made these rules and regulations very lenient for a new businessman to start a new business, for the entrepreneurs to start up something new, but still India comes in top 10 in the world in case of the complexity of starting up a new business in Indian economy. And it won't be wrong to say that in India it is easier to get a license of arm, that is like your gun license, rather than starting up a new business. If you want to start up a new restaurant in Delhi, you need at least 13 to 14 NOCs and approvals. But if you need to you want a gun license for yourself, you have to just go through the 6 or 7 formalities. NOCs are required. So that documentation, that paperwork, the things which you have to go through, it's very tedious in India. Lack of proper monitoring and follow-up are also another internal reasons. Now coming to the external reasons for the failure of the project or the overrun of a project: funds not being released by the concerned department on time, if there is delay from the department in releasing the funds, changes in foreign exchange rates, inflation, political instability, budget deficits, diversion of funds to other unforeseen uses like meeting a natural calamities. If your funds get diverted there, then also these can be the reasons for the delay in the project. So with this we end today's class. We will continue in the next class. Thank you.